It is a hot afternoon here in Tel Aviv, and it is what's the weather like in Basel today, Tigran?
It's moderate. It's about 20 Celsius. So
Oh, might I envy you? It was 36 yesterday, and it's cooled down. There's only 31 or 32 today, so I envy you. Um, this is actually a great opportunity for me to introduce our listeners to a person I've worked with for over time. He's a great guy, and he invented the idea of business development as a service. And I'm not going to tell the story. I'll let Tigran tell the story. So why don't we start off with you telling a story how you got from, I think you did a degree in surgery, right, to where you are today.
no, not quite. I'm a biologist.
Biologist, right? Okay.
Yes, yes. So I'm a biologist. I'm originally from Armenia. I did a PhD in Russia in biotechnology, moved to UK in 1999, and after spending some years in academic research, I moved into commercial roles with CROs. Then I left the UK for Germany and later on Switzerland. And I started BD as a service 6 years ago. And the reason why I started BD as a service, over my time as a business development person, I had to twice represent US companies in Europe. And it's a very challenging role. So when European companies start work in the US, they usually start with operational office. And once the office grows to maybe 10, 15 people, they will hire somebody to do sales. That's not the way the US companies do things. US companies want to start with sales straight away. So they parachute a salesperson and they say, go ahead and sell. And there is nothing, right? There's not even a person to take with you to a meeting. So it's a very challenging position for a salesperson. And I thought, well, what if I essentially build a sales department for hire? What if I create support around me and then I approach multiple companies that I can offer this service to? And this is how essentially BD as a service got started.
It's a great story, and I know that you've worked with some really high-profile companies also. You've done a lot of interesting projects and made some good money on the way for you and your customers. So I guess it takes us to the next question, which is, so you kind of started with this. How do you create value for customers, and who are your customers anyhow?
Yeah. I intentionally stopped because I thought I'm going to spill the beans like ahead of time. So I need to wait for you to ask the question. So my customers are companies that find it difficult to hire in business development. But this is a very loaded, let's say, question. Who finds it difficult to hire in business development? Because this covers a huge majority or huge variety of cases, right? When we started 6.5 years ago, we started with the idea to support US companies coming into Europe. And then after a little while, we understood that this is only a small subset of companies that need help with business development because they find it difficult to hire. So one example is companies that are moving to another geography. Another example is founder-led consultancies. And founder-led consultancies, they go through the same cycle of pain when they're trying to hire in business development. So usually, a founder-led consultancy, the founder starts thinking about hiring maybe 5 years into the journey. At that time, they probably have grown to 10, 15 people. And the founder starts finding that he or she is running out of time. There's no time to do business development on the one side. On the other side, it becomes more difficult because the network of the founder has aged, right? People have moved on, people have retired. So new connections are needed. Founder needs to open new doors. And usually once the founder starts scouting the field, they see that they have two options. They can hire somebody very junior or they can hire somebody very senior. Right? And the reason for this is that obviously it's easy to find somebody junior. There's lots of people who have no experience and are very eager to learn. right? And it's relatively easy to find somebody who is like semi-retired, right, and wants to make a little bit of money on the side. It's very hard to find somebody between the ages of 30 and 40 because this is the golden age for business development and bigger companies will outbid you.
Right.
So the founder usually starts, well, with hiring somebody very junior, thinking, okay, we will train that person, they will grow with us. Now, the problem is to train a salesperson, you have to be a salesperson. And the founder usually is not a salesperson. The
That's right.
founder is getting business through knowledge, through experience, and through connections.
And some personal connections. And in this space, we all know that a lot of the founders are scientist founders also. So they're definitely not salespeople.
Yeah, exactly. And these things are not transferable, right? You cannot load the head of a salesperson with all the knowledge, and you cannot just hand over all the connections. So the founder and the salesperson go to a conference. The founder is busy shaking hands, talking to people. The salesperson is just standing there, not knowing what to do, right? And usually after 6 months, the junior salesperson leaves the company. Now, if then the founder thinks, okay, this didn't work, I'm going to go and hire somebody senior. And then they run into a different kind of problem because the senior person, of course, needs no coaching. They know everything and they can close the deals, but they have lost the energy. They no longer see themselves sitting down in front of the computer, putting together lists of emails or making hundreds of calls. That a senior salesperson basically loses this ability because by the end of their career, they are being used as a consultant. They are being used to close difficult cases. They are not used, and maybe for 20 years now, they have not done any cold emails, right? And they have not done any research. So after 6 months, the founder understands that the senior salesperson essentially does the same thing the founder does. And the founder doesn't need more of what he does or she does. The founder needs opening doors, and it's not happening. So the founder and the senior salesperson part ways. And what we are offering is essentially the middle ground, right? I am an experienced salesperson. I have been in this industry for 20 years. I have a team of people who are supporting me and who can have all the activity. And what's more, we also have all the infrastructure and all the technology that a sales department needs. And this is something that a founder with a single salesperson will not have. And it takes time and it takes knowledge and effort to build all of this.
Not
So
to mention all the trial and energy that he will have, especially today with all the noise around AI, and that. So you can spend a year just screwing around with finding the right, technical systems for yourself.
exactly. And it's not just about finding them, it's trying them, failing, then realizing you need something else and trying something else. And a lot of these things are not rocket science, but it takes the effort and the time to get to know them. And a very good example is email deliverability. Right? This is a huge issue, and every person who uses email today has probably had an occasion where either they have had an important email land in a spam folder or their email to somebody important landed in the spam folder. Now, if this is happening to unsuspecting users of email, you can only imagine how much this is happening to people trying to send cold emails. Right? And in the past, we were paying essentially for solutions. We would buy a good solution that would solve our problem. And after a few months, we would find that it's no longer working. Right? We would go out and investigate why it stopped working, and we would buy another solution only to find the second solution failing after a few months. So after several cycles, we just came to the conclusion that it's no longer working. It's not possible to pay for an off-the-shelf solution and be sure that your emails are getting delivered. So we acquired internally capability to consult on email deliverability, and we are now building custom systems for our clients, coupled with online consultancy. So if something has changed, if Outlook or Google have changed the rules and they don't publish these changes, not
Right.
always, right? We have somebody who is completely clued in and can advise the client straight away.
That's an amazing thing, and it's actually, in a way, people look at it, and they say it's kind of low tech, but it's actually really high tech because, as you say, Google and Microsoft are changing the rules all the time. They never tell anyone what they're doing. And I had that just the other day. One of the agencies that works with me on the podcast, she said, "Oh gosh, that notice of going live the other day, it just dropped in my spam." Now that never happened before, and I know that there has recently been some major changes by Google, hasn't there?
Exactly, exactly. And this is just a part of it. Like there are many technical cogs like this that have to be oiled, and unless you know when and where to oil them, you won't be able to. So this is part of it. You have to have the technical knowledge. You have to have the staff. You have to have the people who have the energy, who are dedicated to research, and you also have to have the people who know how to sell. And then there are a few more things to this. So there's the flexibility. Essentially, we are able to start working with you immediately, unless we already work with your competitor. We make a point of not working with companies that compete with each other. But if we don't have a similar company in our portfolio, we can start working with you immediately. If something has changed, you can stop working with us with 1 month's notice. And then you can come back to us and start working with us again. And we have had cases like this. It might be that you need to pivot. And this is actually a very common scenario with startups. So startup gets advised that they need to hire the best of the best, and they hire the best salesperson, and they give them an equity package and nice salary. And then 3 months after or later, they find out that they need to pivot. And while they're pivoting, they cannot use the salesperson. So they let the salesperson go through no fault of the salesperson. And many startups are actually discouraged from hiring in sales precisely because they know this is what can happen. And with us, that's not a danger because we don't depend on a single client. And you can stop working with us and start working with us again once you have finished your pivot.
That's a huge advantage because I think a story that I had years ago when I started working, after I left Intel, we started a company to do software distribution, and our lead investor was Yuda Zisapel of blessed memory. Our Israeli listeners know the story of the Zisapel brothers, and so we were working on something, and I said, "God, that's not going to be ready for at least 3 or 4 months or 5 months," and Yuda said. So what are you worried about? By the time you build up some pipeline, you will have finished developing the product, right? So start selling right now, start building a pipeline. By the time you have some pipeline, your pipeline will catch up with your product development cycle. So Yuda was a big believer in not waiting to start selling.
Yeah, in theory, it can work like that, assuming you know what you're building.
Yeah.
But it
No, we
might be
do.
that you don't actually know what you are going to end up with.
Well, we know what we were building,
Yeah.
and that was for sure. And Yuda had the confidence in us, and he funded the company, and he said, "Don't worry about it. You build, but start selling right now." And I think that what you offer has huge value in that perspective because there is sort of, as a founder, I've been a founder several times. And as a founder, you always have this kind of dilemma and kind of like a fear that you say, well, should I start talking to customers now? At the beginning, the first time you do it, you're afraid that someone will find out what you're doing. And then you realize that it's better for a lot of people to know what you're doing. Don't keep it a secret. But then the next stage that happens, you say, you wonder that too many people will find out what you're doing, and then you'll be in deep shit because now you can't deliver properly. So there is that kind of fear in the back of the mind of a founder. But I think at the end of the day, we both know that the sales process is always longer than you think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But also, I think the climate is changing a little bit in that fake it till you make it used to be really popular like 15 years ago. And I think after some very high profile failures, there's less tolerance towards this type of approach, especially with AI, where essentially there is no lag or very little lag, right? People get to use AI as it's getting developed. Now, imagine OpenAI came out and said, Well, we have something and it's going to be great and it's going to come out in 1 year. Sign up and pay your money today. Wouldn't work, right?
No,
You
no.
have to feed what you have, and people have grown to expect that you deliver something that is working today.
That's right, and I think that that sort of this whole idea of agile and improve and iterate. I think that people have zero tolerance for that now. I think people in any given category, whether it's CRM or CTMS or EDC, there's like a dozen different alternatives, and some of them are actually very good, and some of them maybe not so good. But the fact of the matter is that in any given category, you'll have three or four that are very good. And it's very hard for a customer to really understand, and that means that the customer will have very low tolerance for trying things out and waiting for you to figure it out. But I think Uda's advice is still valid today. If you know what you're doing, if you have a solid team, then you need to start working on the pipeline.
Yeah.
Uh, the This sort of brings me to the next question, which is, you know, value capture. So how do you capture value for customers? I'd be happy to hear some example because I know you're working with CROs and with CTMS companies and with I think an IRT company. So maybe you could give us some examples.
Yeah. So through trial and error, we came to a model which we use universally, which is a fixed monthly payment plus commission. Now, our commission is probably a bit higher than what you would pay to a salesperson, but our monthly payment is quite a bit lower. Like if you compare us, for example, with let's say West Coast US, we get paid probably a quarter of what you would pay a salesperson there, maybe even 20%. And overall, I think even if we are wildly successful, we end up costing about as much as you would pay a salesperson. Now, the upside is that the front investment is modest. So it's much easier to start with us than it is to hire a salesperson. And also the advantage is that we have been through the process of onboarding a new client many times. So we can actually ramp our activity up quicker than a hire can. I mean, an average person who gets hired maybe had a new job 5, 6 times in their lives, right? And those were not similar jobs, right? It was all different. We have helped around 40 companies by now. So the process of onboarding a new company is already essentially feels like automation. Like we have a checklist. This is what we need to do. Bam, bam, bam. We can start reaching out in 2 weeks. We probably will get first meetings in a month.
That's great. That's great. Um, you don't have to mention names, but I know you're working with a very exciting CRO right now, and they're sort of changing the rules in their space. I guess this sort of brings me to the last question for the podcast, which is kind of like an interview question. When you're going to an interview, maybe a while back, the manager would say, "Oh, well, okay, Danny, where do you want to be in 10 years?" Something like that. So I'll ask you, what are three things you want to do for your customers in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, well, our customers are all different, and the way that we support our customers is very different. Some customers don't even want us to use their name, so we make it clear that we are um, essentially a mediator. For other customers, we handle invoicing, so it can be very different. What we want to do is to integrate the process and to provide to the clients the most complete offering possible. And we are working towards that direction. So we have absorbed email deliverability consultancy. This is something that we wouldn't do before. We are providing marketing service. This is something that we were not doing before. We are looking to be able to essentially come to a customer that has nothing and start from scratch, create a website, create marketing campaign, create the meaning behind the campaign. Essentially, be in a situation where, let's say, a major company comes to us and they're opening a new division, and we can cover all sales and marketing activity for that division without the company needing to allocate any resources. That's the ambition.
Amazing. So maybe, just before we finish, so give our listeners kind of a sense for the kind of customers in the life science space that you work with. Are you selling to wet customers or to dry customers? Is it digital or is it molecules?
Yeah, we started completely digital, and we have never, let's say, we have never made any stipulations, right? It's not like we were choosing to only be in the digital space, but because this is what I was doing before I started BD as a service, this is where most of my contacts were. So initially we were 100% digital, but with time this balance started to shift, and now we are about 50-50. So 50% of our services are in the digital space, and the other 50 are supporting CROs, consultancies, and labs.
Cool, cool. And I guess, I don't know, one of my guests a few months ago asked, so he said, um, I'm kind of surprised you didn't ask me about industry trends. And I said, well, I don't really care about industry trends. I care about you. I care about what you're doing and how you bring added value and where you want to go. But still in your case, we were talking about selling, and you've seen a lot. You've seen like this whole spectrum of development and ClinOps. I'll succumb to the question. Okay, I'll take the bait. So what is happening in 2025 with industry trends and clinical trials? Let's ask you that question.
Yeah, I think it depends on the subsector, let's say, because I think our industry is not a single entity. There are different parts of it that are moving in different directions with different speed. I think the perception that some of the players in our industry are just resting on their laurels is probably no longer true. I think everybody's feeling the pressure, and I think big CROs and big pharma are not as relaxed as they used to be.
Hmm.
And they are watching technology very closely, and they're making investments and making movements. So I think that's one trend, that the way that the industry is working is becoming more homogeneous. So it used to be that smaller players providing services would work 24 hours, and larger companies would lead, relaxed life and not read their emails while on holiday. Yes, I think that's not happening anymore. Everybody is working harder and harder. And in general, I think the industry is becoming leaner. And one of the driving forces of that is the personalization of medicine, because personalization means less blockbusters, and it means there's more diversity in work, but each of your compounds is going to bring you less money. So it's like, with oil, all the big all the big reserves are gone. Now you have to go into shale, right? And which means you have to be more savvy, you have to put in more technology, and perhaps get less return per unit of your labor if you don't count the tech. So that's, I think, is general trend. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's a huge speed. AI is really shaking things up. One of our clients told us that they're seeing a change every few weeks, essentially. They're working with the AI agents, and they see that the way that their agents are reacting and the quality of the work that they're delivering is changing every few weeks. So, and this speed is actually becoming a thing across the industry. So I think the industry is becoming more homogeneous, more similar, leaner, and meaner, so to speak.
Well, leaner and meaner, I think, in a $1.5 trillion drug industry is a good thing. And I think that leaner and meaner in CRO business is a good thing also, and using AI to make the operations more effective and to go a lot faster. Just the concept in clinical trials of going faster, I think, is a valuable idea in motion in its own right, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so until now, people would be on an excuse. I have to send you an email and you have to find time to open your email. Well, now, an agent is going to read your email and take action. Um, Tigran, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Your insights are great and your experience is just fantastic. And My name is Danny Lieberman. I'm the host of Life Sciences Today. We're part of the healthcare IT network, and we have a huge number of visitors. And we've done 30 shows in just a bit under 4 months. So this podcast is going very, very quickly. Tigran, why don't you share with the visitors how people can get in touch with you?
Yes, so we have a website. It's bdasaservice in one word.com. And if you mention this podcast, you will get a nice introductory discount for our services.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure.